Hey Gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I'm Corey.
And I'm Matt. And each week this podcast will serve as a catalyst for discussion on all sorts of topics that grind our gears, rev our engines, and just need a bit more conversation.
And on this week's episode, I think we get under your skin just a little bit.
Right.
In talking about the hybridification of an American icon. And that is, of course, the long-awaited, very long-awaited for some people, the Jeep Wrangler 4xe.
Yeah.
The full hybrid, is that an oxymoron? The hybrid version of the Jeep Wrangler. And there is a lot of controversy, I would say, around the name and the pronunciation of the name. I just took it as obvious that it was supposed to be 4xe because it's a 4x4.
Right.
That's electron powered.
Right.
And so like my marketing, I got it.
Yeah.
I understood it. But a lot of people thought it was like 4xe or that they weren't tracking along with the rest of us.
Okay.
So yes, it is the Wrangler 4xe, and it is a plug-in hybrid variant of the tried and true Jeep Wrangler. And as of the recording of this episode, Chris, who was one of the first people in the nation to receive his that he had ordered as soon as he could, he has had his for 7 days as of this recording. So
yeah,
very fresh product in the hands of consumers. And we are learning along with him some of the pros and cons and ins and outs and unique programming, I guess would be the right tuning, maybe also proper word for things he is finding out about his rig as he is living with it. He's doing a lot of different tests with it. Drove 500 miles just today, he said. So putting a lot of miles on it, doing the research for future consumers of this. It's a bold step by the Jeep brand in a new direction.
Yeah. But bold is would be some choice words for it. Some might say they got in a room and held up a brick and a blow dryer and said, let's put these two together. But,
Yes. So.
Do you like that one?
Yes. It got me. Yes. I liked it. Who in their right mind would have thought of making one of the least aerodynamic vehicles on the face of the earth a plug-in hybrid? Well, it's the good folks over at Stellantis and Jeep in particular, taking one of the most iconic vehicles in the automotive industry and electrifying it. And, it's interesting in that, and we touch a little bit on it in the episode, Jeep is competing a little bit against themselves with the 392 concept because a lot of certain stats and performance figures are very similar to the 392. You're obviously getting more fun, more noise, and more brute power with the 392. Very, very interesting couple of variants that the Jeep brand has announced in the past year. And I've personally got to spend a little itty-bitty time with both. Didn't get to drive either, but got to check both out in full detail. And very excited about the future of us here at GT Garage Talk getting behind the wheel of both. We can spoil the episode or we can just jump right into it. We are very glad to welcome Chris Hall on the podcast and to sit down and talk all things Wrangler 4xe with us.
Yeah.
So thank you first and foremost for not only accepting our invite to come on the podcast, but inviting us to join your group on Facebook that has just ballooned in popularity.
It has. It's blown up.
So why don't we first dig in a little bit to maybe you and your personal vehicle history? I know that there's a slightly smaller hybrid in your life than the one that you are currently sitting in.
Yes, slightly. The car right before this one was a lot smaller, and then the car before this one was an actual hybrid. Went from a Honda Insight to a smart electric drive. So kind of at the comedic opposite end of where the Wrangler 4xe sits in the electrified vehicle spectrum. And that's my trajectory. But I did come from a Jeep background. I've been between Jeeps for 21 years. So
very nice.
Okay.
Finally getting back into one.
Well overdue.
Yes. Yes.
And you've made quite a re-entry into the Jeep community with the long-awaited, and I mean long-awaited, Wrangler 4xe.
Long awaited.
And I'm sure we get back to that in a little bit. I just want to first ask the question, how do we go from a smart car to a Wrangler?
And thank you for being the first person to ask that, because I've laughed at myself at going from this dorky little car to this thing. And it all stemmed. I mean, I'll make this story really short. I watched Solar Impulse 2. I don't know if you're familiar with Solar Impulse. Solar-powered airplane flew around the world. Bertrand Piccard and I'm not going to come up with the other creator's name, flew this solar-powered airplane around the world. And I've just been fascinated by solar energy and different ways of powering our lives for years. But they landed here in Dayton, where I live. The Dayton airport is just about 15 minutes from here, and they landed here in Dayton. And I went out and saw the plane land, and I got up at like 3 o'clock a couple of mornings later to go watch it take off. But I remember Bertrand Piccard saying, when they landed here, we don't have to wait to do something. We can all do something to reduce our impact on the environment. And right at that time, we needed a third car in our house. And we went kind of looking, and I thought, I wonder if I could find a really cheap EV. The used market's kind of growing at that time. This was in 2016. I wasn't going to go out and buy a Tesla. I just didn't want to spend the money on it. And you can argue that I maybe have in this, but I just wanted to see how cheap of an EV I could get. So $6,500 for a vehicle I drove for 5 years, and it cost me about $25 a month in electricity. And so I just really, going from a Honda Insight, I got really excited about efficiency and what was possible in these different powertrains or propulsion systems, I guess, as we call them now. And but I've always wanted to get back into a Jeep. That has been my goal. And so a year after I bought that smart car, they announced at the LA Auto Show in 2017 that there was going to be a plug on a Wrangler. And I said, okay, I am going to wait, and I'm going to follow, and I'm going to snoop, and I'm going to search the internet and figure out when this thing's coming out. And so that's how I landed here.
It's quite a journey, to say the least. Being the resident Jeep head, I should have worn my Team Jeep shirt for this evening. I was curious about the 4xe from the moment I heard about it, and then, was lucky enough to see it in person and was not clued into the just immensely huge following behind the vehicle that your Facebook group has assembled together, essentially. Mm-hmm. And that there is a very passionate group out there. I love just watching everybody learn together, because as 4xEs are hitting customers' garages, we're snooping and finding out all together and asking questions of each other and learning together as a community. So that's been the fun part for me.
Oh yeah.
I'm just sorry that we did not get connected sooner, because I was there with the Jeep folks looking at a 4xe in the flesh with access to ask any question. I just did not know what to ask, because I was dipping my toe into these electrified waters. There's a lot to know. It's a very different world. It's something that it sounds like you are very passionate about in all aspects of it.
I don't know if it's passion or obsession. There's a fine line there, but I'm just fascinated by them. And I'm so fascinated at the questions that come from the group. Like, oh, I never thought to ask that. People, there was just one this week. I forget what it was, but I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought to ask that. And I had to run out to the garage and kind of poke around and, go through the settings and figure out, I don't know if I know the answer to that or not.
That's awesome. And I've loved the videos too that you've been posting just in the week, 10 days that you've had your rig now. You've been
Let's see, I got it on the 30th.
Wow. So 6-7 days.
Wow. Not even a week. That's awesome. It's been fun to learn, like Corey said, learn with you and see all the details and the ins and outs of the rig.
Yeah. And I did an experiment just today. I mean, I'm learning every day. I'm doing different experiments and working it in different ways. And I did 130 miles today, and I got 24 and a half miles a gallon. So
In a brick.
I disagree with the EPA. That's
Right.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Going into the Facebook group, for those unaware, is Jeep Wrangler
Yes.
4xE vans. As of this recording, we're at 2.4 thousand members, and that's a worldwide audience. Am I right?
Iceland, it's incredible to see the different countries that are represented. Iceland is actually behind the United States. Iceland, we have more people from Iceland than anywhere else.
Wow.
It's been fun to watch, but a lot of North Americans, a lot of Canadians and Americans, and it's interesting.
This past week has been perhaps the most exciting on the Facebook page because we have started seeing dealers make deliveries to customers, yourself included. You highlighted the top two. So you had the first Sahara model delivered and the first Rubicon model delivered on your page. And
I just qualified myself on that, by the way, even though I was the first.
Okay. So I was going to ask, were you actually the first? Because it seemed like you were, but then that went up. So good to know. Like I said, it's just been fun watching people not only learn about them as they get them and all the excitement buzzing around, when am I getting mine? Or, I've had my VIN number for a month now and the dealer says we're scheduled, and probably a lot like what we're going to see when the Bronco, I had to bring it up, when the Bronco starts making the rounds. I will say the group inspired me to go to our local Jeep dealer and do a quick drive around just to see if one had been delivered there. And I could see no evidence of one. I had my 3-year-old with me, so I wasn't going to get out and do any snooping because there would be no getting him back in the car at that point.
No.
Jeep is one of the brands of vehicles that he knows without question. Like he sees one, he's like, "That's a Jeep." So that's just been awesome to see it through his eyes.
All kids know that Jeeps are awesome. It's when we grow up and lose perspective that we end up driving all these other vehicles.
You hear that, Matt? You hear that?
Oh my.
So what have been some of your most interesting, most fun discoveries since taking delivery of your Jeep? And why don't first you preface that by exactly how you spec'd yours out?
Well, so this is a Sahara. It's not a high altitude. It's a Sahara cold weather group. I've got the trailer electric group, the keyless entry, proximity, remote start.
Looks like you got the hard top.
Yeah, the hard top and the soft top. I haven't put the soft top on yet. And what else did we do? It's basically everything but the smokers group is the way I put it.
Right.
That $30 smokers group on there. But it's my wife talked me into the leather seats. I kept on trying to do like cheap things, and she's like, "Oh, you need to do this. Oh, you need to do this. You need to do the adaptive cruise control and the safety." And so it's got all that stuff. I don't have the front camera. I wonder if I'll come to regret that. And I didn't get the liners yet, but I'll think about that later.
So going back to the question, what has been some of your most interesting or fun discoveries?
So in hybrid mode, I did a lot of hybrid mode. I killed the battery yesterday, and which, of course, the battery is never completely dead. There's about a 15% buffer in there, so they can maintain horsepower and torque and everything. And I have a theory, a speculation that I think is pretty well placed, that's also a safety thing. If you push the pedal to the floor, no matter what's going on, you're going to get full power out of this thing. And it's a rocket. It sets you back in the seat. And so even if you're in electric mode and you stomp it, it will start the engine. It's a lot less likely than in hybrid mode. In hybrid mode, if you're real easy on it when you take off from a stop sign, it won't start the engine. But if you just get on it a little bit, like our normal patterns that we use in traffic, it'll start that engine for a little bit. I think the neatest thing I just discovered in the past 2 days is even in hybrid mode, even when the screen will show like less than 1%, that's when you've hit what we would think of as run down.
Right.
What we would think of as a dead battery, but it's never actually dead. But even in that state, when you turn on max regen, and you go to slow down, like you're getting off an off ramp or coming up to a stoplight, the engine shuts off kind of way earlier than the start stop on other vehicles, the other gas vehicles. It shuts off and it lets you coast all the way in, and then it will stay in electric mode until about 15 miles an hour. So today I came back from my 130-mile experiment, And as I slowed down to go into the parking lot, it shut off the engine, and it stayed in electric mode the whole time until I hit the parking space. So it's really well done from that perspective, that they are trying to get that engine to not run. You know, it's very thoughtful. The hybrid system makes a lot of great decisions. And as you're watching it, it's almost like an AI or something. It's doing the things that you would probably do if you had manual control over turning that engine off. And a lot of the first generation Honda Insight owners are like hackers. You know, they've hacked the software, and they've got switches to take over control of the different systems, and it responds like I think a human would respond. So I think there's a lot of R&D in that software that has really done a great job. And the other surprise I would say I found, you know, a lot of EVs and plug-in hybrids won't regen as much in that first 10%, from like 100% to 90% on the battery. It won't regen a lot because it doesn't have anything to do with that energy. You know, it doesn't have any place to put it.
Right.
So I did a test earlier over the weekend where I went to the top of a big hill near my house, and I was just letting the vehicle roll down the hill just in the electric mode with no regen on to see how fast it would go. And then I went back to the top of that hill, put on the max regen, and let it roll down, and it slowed it down significantly. Well, then found out from one of the engineers at Jeep, he said, hey, you need to go back and redo that test on a lower battery state, because the max regen button, when the battery's charged at a higher state, like 100%, they've actually worked in software to apply the friction brakes to mimic max regen until the battery goes down low enough.
Wow.
And I'm so fascinated that they were able to work that in, and it feels the same. If he hadn't told me, I never would have known. And I didn't even think about what's this vehicle doing with that excess energy.
Right.
If I'm at 100%, I didn't even process that, because I've seen that in my smart car, and I've seen that in friends that have Teslas and stuff, that they, they won't regen as strong when you're at a higher charge. So they just neat little.
That sounds.
But there's a lot of thought.
Yeah, that sounds like Apple level.
Yes.
Thought and detail to the user experience, because, like you said, you never would have known, and that's the ultimate goal: is to be as seamless and as similar in all operations as possible, so that the driving experience feels like I'm just driving a Jeep. And
yes,
by the way, I'm using electrons instead of fossil fuels, and we're able to skate by on pure EV power. And so that is actually very impressive. I saw those videos and all your tests, so that was really fun to watch for the nerd that I am.
I'm the nerd. Yeah, that's where that comes from. There's some high level nerd Jedi stuff going on here.
Well, from a mechanic's point of view, I turn wrenches for a living, and I have some concern with, and you may have some insight in this, or may have had some discussions with some folks, some engineers or whatnot. But the start-stop technology, the applying the brakes, and all those types of things, all those things eventually break. What's the philosophy? What's the theory behind all the stop-start stuff? And what kind of life expectancy are they expecting out of the batteries, out of the starters, those types of things?
You know, I haven't heard anything as far as lifespan.
Okay.
I do have a little bit of a theory. They gave the 4xe like it's a 7.2 or 7.7 kilowatt per hour charge rate.
Okay.
That's really low from an EV plug-in hybrid point of view. I mean, you could go a lot higher at level 2 charging. And my theory on that is they want to protect that battery.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot like when, what kills batteries is high charge rates and temperatures, of course.
Sure.
And Tesla discovered all that, when they started cranking up their charge rates, they was like, well, all we got to do is keep them cool and we can charge them faster.
Yeah.
When they brought, and what leads to that, my thinking in that, when they brought the smart car to the United States, it's basically a European vehicle. The charge rate on it's about half what it is on the European smarts. And nobody really knows why, but the only thing we can figure is they brought them to the United States. They want those batteries to last because you have to ship those over on a boat, and it's about $29,000 to get them over here, to buy the battery and get it over here.
Wow.
So they want those batteries to last when they come to North America, or at least they did. They're not selling them here anymore. But that was the running theory, was that you charge them at a lower rate. Yeah, it's a pain and it's annoying, but it's going to extend the lifespan of that battery. And I have a theory that Jeep wants to make sure this thing is going to make it to 10, 15 years. Right. And a lot of the studies will say 12 to 15 years. And I think there's an extra level of, I think it was a really intelligent move to put that battery inside the cabin. Yeah. Because now it's getting the environmental protection. I mean, it's got a cooling and heating loop going inside the battery, but those batteries work at a temperature that's comfortable to we humans. Sure. So if I keep it cool in here, I'm keeping the outside of the case cool. Right. And so I think Jeep wants to really elongate the lifespan of that battery. And something I felt from the beginning, they want this Jeep it has to do well. You have the most iconic vehicle probably in the United States, and a very harsh fan base, that will let you know right up front in your face when you screw something up.
Absolutely. Double-edged sword of a passionate fan base.
I mean, look how much flack they've received for just tilting the windshield back with each generation. I mean, it's 5 degrees. What are you talking about? Crazy, So they know this thing has to live, and so I have a feeling. I hope. I mean, I bought the thing. I hope it's going to hold up well. But yeah, I mean, that's my other thought. Like you said, I'm understanding all these systems and these 2 electric motors and this gas engine. Oh my gosh, I would not want to be the guy in the seat trying to design and implement all that stuff. And, sure. And people always say, don't buy the first generation of anything. I've never bought the first generation of anything, so I feel like I need to step up and do my part at some point. And so if there's recalls, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because there's a lot here. Oh yeah. But I also kind of feel like that's one of the reasons we had to wait so long, was they knew they had to get this thing right, and I feel like they've put a lot into it, R&D and testing, and so time will tell.
Sounds a lot like it, but yeah, to your point, I mean, recalls are inevitable. Anytime you produce anything, a vehicle or just a normal consumer good, there are going to be things that you find out just through normal usage that you never could have tested for. You never could have imagined a certain scenario, and it'll come up. Us car enthusiasts, we're passionate about what we're passionate about, and we like to poke fun at the other side when something goes wrong. But it is an inevitable process of making a consumer good. So there is that. One thing that I saw on the group that I never would have thought about, back to your thought of just having this very passionate fan base all together, asking questions and bringing up things that you never would have thought about. I've shared many a time that if I got a 4xe, I don't know that I'd ever use the gas engine, just because when I was commuting, my commute is 3 miles. So 3 miles 4 times a day, because I come home for lunch, and I can do all that on pure EV mode. But there was a whole discussion about, letting that stale gas sit in the fuel tank, and Jeep's even thought of that. That's something I never would have even thought about, and I don't know how much knowledge you have as to all of that. That was just one of the cool things I saw as a member of the group.
Well, going back to the Chevy Volt, they had a pressurized fuel system, I think, from the start. I think the first gen had it. So they've learned from some of these other vehicles, and so the Chevy Volt's kind of like the predecessor into that, and this is kind of like the 4x4 version of the Chevy Volt in a lot of ways. Better than it's a series hybrid, and this is a parallel hybrid.
So, GM fanboy over here, I never understood, aside from the fact that it was a sedan or a hatchback, and nobody's really buying sedans and hatchbacks right now, like, that seemed like the right formula for what America needs right now, and to bridge the gap to this all-electric future that everyone is shooting for now. Like Volvo today released a video and snuck in that starting today, they are going all electric. The details of that is still a little murky, but it just seems like
Volvo halted all R&D on the gas engine, I think 6 months ago. They said they had developed their last gas engine. So.
And Audi's done the same. So
yeah,
being that Lamborghini is very closely tied with the Audi part of VWAG, leads me to believe what does that statement from Audi mean for the crazy Italian supercar brand? If Audi is like, yeah, we're done with R&D on internal combustion. I'm like,
yeah.
So, all right. Well, EJS has come and gone, and as per usual, Jeep brought some crazy, awesome concepts to the Safari. I wanted to get your take on one in particular, and that is, of course, Magneto.
Magneto.
Yes.
Yep, say it like that. Magneto.
The fully 100% electric Wrangler. So nothing is etched in stone. Anything can change at any point, but it's clear evidence that a full electric Jeep Wrangler is coming at some point. Do you feel like you've perhaps jumped on too soon? Is that a trade-up plan for y'all? What's your thinking there?
I kind of look at the Wrangler 4xe as a vehicle that I hope becomes obsolete, and I mean that. I mean that it. I have a feeling it is a bridge vehicle, and I will be curious if it gets 10 years in production. I've kind of speculated it. What will be its production lifespan? And the Wrangler is just probably about the toughest vehicle to convert. It's, there's that little image that floats around different Jeep groups that has like a picture of a cow in a simulated wind tunnel and a picture of a Jeep Wrangler. And it says the cow was more aerodynamic. The drag coefficient is horrible on the Jeep Wrangler. Yep. And we have seen the best EVs are ground up builds. They're not redesigns. They're not just tucking an electric motor in an existing vehicle. That the easiest way, because a lot of the vehicles that we see that are gas vehicles or EVs are purpose built, and their form follows their function to a lot of extent. So to start with a Wrangler, one, it's kind of ridiculous from an EV standpoint, but it's proof that anything can be electrified. I mean, if you can electrify a Wrangler and get 25 miles out of it. Now, if they could have got 35, I think that would be a real sweet spot for a lot of people. But they did it well going to 25. But it will be interesting to see. The Magneto has a lot of problems from. It is a concept vehicle, of course. So we can't get too harsh. We can't get too critical. But air-cooled batteries in 2021 and beyond are not. That's not going to make it to production. Right. Will the transmission make it to production? There's a lot of efficiency loss in that transmission. As fun as it would be to drop that thing in first and light up the tires and see what it can do, there's a lot of efficiency loss. That's why EVs don't have transmissions; they just have gearboxes. And so it's going to be interesting to see what comes out, and what a lot of people seem to struggle with. There were a lot of people I saw on Twitter really critical about the plug-in hybrid in the Wrangler. They're like, oh, they should go all electric. And as we saw in the Hummer EV, you can make a really awesome vehicle and give it a lot of range and then put an extra zero on the end of the price tag. Yeah. And, Jeep, the Hummer doesn't have to compete with another Hummer on the lot. Right. That's why they've spun it off into its own, they brought back the old Hummer name. If you could electrify, you could put a 200 kilowatt hour battery in a Wrangler and then drop it on the lot at $110,000 and hope that it can somehow compete with the $50,000, $60,000 Wrangler sitting right next to it.
Right.
So that's what's really tough for Jeep, is they're going to have to compete with themselves. Whereas all these other vehicles, you see Volvo spinning off, what's their spin-off EV? Polestar, yeah. And, Tesla, of course, has not had to compete with anything else of its own line. And, you see these things happening because, Rivian and, all these other groups, and Ford, of course, is working on an F-150 electric, but where is it? It's not on the road yet.
Chevy announced just today officially the Silverado EV with 400 plus miles on a single charge. So yeah, it's coming.
But what they're waiting on, of course, is that battery price to get at the right point where we have price parity with gas vehicles. But think about trying to do that in a Jeep. An F-150 is more aerodynamic than a Wrangler, and it's going to be tough on Jeep. And so I think it's brilliant that they stepped out and went this direction for now. And but of course, down the road, you can have a 4xe and a Magneto in your driveway, and you're covered. You can take long trips and you can get around town.
So it's quite interesting that you bring up the point of Jeep competing with itself, because another channel that I follow has brought up that very same thing in the 4xe and the 392 Wrangler.
Sure.
And essentially, they do kind of compete against themselves in fun factor and power factor. It's two completely different ways to arrive at a similar-ish result, and the 4xe is immensely cheaper. I've got both spec sheets pulled up here. So the Rubicon 4xe starts at 51, might as well make it 52,000, and the 392 starts at 74,000. So even there, you're immensely undercutting. Granted, it's a very powerful 392 V8 engine, but when it comes to some of the off-road capabilities, the 4xe holds its own against something as crazy as the 392. I think the people really going after the 392 are going to be idiots like me that don't have easy access to super crazy off-road trails and just want something loud and obnoxious and very powerful that can also, conquer Moab.
Well, I think it says something really cool. One thing I've seen in the group that I wasn't really processing. I like big, strong vehicles like anybody else. I love a well-tuned engine. And my nephew has this S10 he's fixing up, and it's just awesome to watch it happen. It just looks like an old S10, and man, the thing can smoke the tires and get down the quarter mile. And I love that stuff. But I'm attracted to the cleaner ways of doing it. And I think it's amazing in that group, the people that are debating between the 392 and the 4xe. And when I came into this, I heard about the 392 and I'm just like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. But to have people looking at the 392, both from a cleaner way of getting yourself down the road, and comparing that to the power of the 392, like I never would have thought that somebody would be debating between those two vehicles. How awesome is it that Jeep has been able to make a vehicle that would appeal to a 392er and to a Prius driver? Right. That's interesting to me. That's a fascinating psychological thing right there to me.
I'll speak to the loud and obnoxious that Corey mentioned a minute ago. I wore this shirt on purpose. I don't know if you're a fan of Finnegan Speed and Marine, but the back of it is it's blasphemy, and it says the music of my people. Right? It's his 500 plus cubic inch blown big block Hemi that he's got in the front of his car, and when he's at the drag strip, it's just got headers and turnouts. It's right there by the door. It's loud and obnoxious. It runs 8-second quarter mile times. It's nuts, and it's a street car. To me, a part of the driving experience is hearing the vehicle run, being able to row through the gears and see the RPMs and feel the noise and all those types of things. One of the most incredible motorsports experiences I have ever been a part of was being at a racetrack when a Top Fuel dragster lit off and went blowing down halfway down the drag strip. I have never felt sound like that ever. And up until that point, I didn't realize that you felt sound that way. So this whole episode, I'm sitting here quivering because you guys are talking about this future EV stuff where there are no internal combustion noise making engines anymore. That makes me nervous. So speak to the lack of noise that you get in the Wrangler and how that plays into the driving experience.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a friend that has an original Tesla Roadster. And if you've never ridden in a Tesla Roadster, he let me drive it. I mean, this is, it looks like a Lotus. It's the Lotus sled with the Tesla guts.
Yeah.
And so it is sitting down on the ground, and I feel like I can drive a car pretty decently. I couldn't get the guts to put the pedal all the way down. I mean, it has so much power. So he gets in the seat and takes off. I mean, you can feel the fat on your cheeks, pulling back. And he even told me, put your head against the headrest. He like warned me.
Brace yourself.
And there is something just as exhilarating in that silent propulsion that, like, because it's absent of that sound, you're losing that sense, but you're going, oh my gosh, you can't believe how fast and powerful a vehicle can be and be silent. If you know somebody that has a Model X, a lot of groups all across the country do these ride and drives, and I highly recommend anybody has the opportunity, go sit in Model X and just let them drop it, and just go at it. But that said, I will say, when you pound it in this thing, you still get that engine, kind of roaring to life and making some noise. Now, of course, they've got the muffler and everything on it, but I'm thinking down the road, I don't know if like the Camaro has those baffle exhausts, that you can turn them on in sport mode. I'm thinking that would be an amazing add-on to the 4xe, to open those up and let it make some noise. And that would be the true bridge to bring people into the 4xe realm.
So, Matt, yes, to your point, like I see a lot of the benefits that Chris is talking about when it comes to electric propulsion. I've watched countless Tesla acceleration videos where they put movie stars in the passenger seat and video their reaction and response.
Yeah.
I've also driven a Hellcat Durango. And so, yes, I know both sides of it. I'm a sucker for a V8 growl, but I'm interested in the hybrid of the market, not necessarily hybrids in general. Like the conversation is now all electric. Everybody's going all electric. That's the part where I'm left kind of scratching my head. I'm like, wait, we skipped at least a step, if not several. And like the natural evolution of things is gone. And some of my car reviewer friends today were commenting on a video of the Magneto where they were going on and on about its silent operation off-road. And I'm like, that's not a selling point to me. Like the instant torque, that's the selling point. The fact that, you can do it all one pedal driving because of the regen and modulate one pedal, and you're able to do everything that you would do 2-foot driving off-road. And, those are the selling points to the general market. And
like on the road, I'm only using the brake about the last 8 feet.
Right.
Like that max regen is bringing you all the way down to about that last 6-8 feet of using the brake. So yeah, that's a selling point.
Yeah. And going back to Matt's comment about the sound of driving, you and several others have shared videos. There is a safety feature mandated by the government, implemented on all battery electric vehicles that can run silently. And there's been, I don't want to say debate, friendly banter maybe, about what exactly the 4xE's electric running mode pedestrian warning sounds like. I've heard aliens. I've heard Metal Gears. Firsthand experience. What's your feel for?
When you put it in reverse, it sounds like a wheel bearing is going out. Very quietly though. But you're not moving. You just hear it. You're like, what's rubbing? But it's
what's
not
broken.
You're not moving. Yeah. But it's, I hear the reverse one. I don't hear the front one because there's 2 speakers on it, and the back one only comes on in reverse. And I hear that one. The front one, I don't hear. It just and you don't hear either one if you have the radio up past level 5 or 6. I mean, it's not that noticeable.
Yeah. And it really is meant to be for pedestrians, not the driver.
Right.
So, all right. I truly hate to force this to an end, but we're doing double duty this evening, and we may just have to bring you back after a few months of ownership and dig in a little bit further, just to see how you're adapting to the 4xe lifestyle. But before we close things, we've got a segment Matt likes to call
Random Misfire. So this is 8.
I gotta get ready for this.
That's right. This is 8 fun little yes or no, either or type questions that just give our listeners a little more insight into you and maybe some of the preferences that you have. So
I'm mildly scared.
Scared. Nothing to be scared of.
Only one question to be scared about, really. I mean, just
theoretically only one question. I'm still not convinced, but all right. So I will kick us off. You've been driving a lot, right? You just got your 4xe. You've been putting a lot of miles on. What is your favorite? 500 miles today. Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're kicking back, and I've seen you with a Mountain Dew a couple of times, but what's your favorite road trip snack?
Cool Ranch Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go ahead and get out of the way the infamous question with a possible wrong answer.
Oh, boy.
Do you name your vehicles?
I don't.
Womp womp.
My smart, it had, the ED logo, the electric drive,
right,
which means electric drive, not erectile dysfunction. But it was as an ED on the side, so I always called it Ed. I mean, it had a name tag right on it. But
that works.
I haven't named this one. I'll have to. I've really been thinking about that, and I just haven't come up with anything.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a reprieve because I've named every vehicle that I've personally owned until my wife and I together bought a Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk, and we have yet to jointly come together on a name for that in 3+ years of ownership. So,
yeah.
To Matt's point, theoretical wrong answer.
Yeah.
I'll pull back a little bit on that one, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So as a 4xe owner, do you prefer driving on road or off road?
Oh, well, to get places on road, but I really am anxious. Oh, I did take it. I couldn't take it anymore. I took it to the cornfield behind my mom's house. and let's just say you can break it loose and get it sideways, and I got a little dirty and then went right to the car wash. So
fair enough.
So yeah, I'm anxious to hit some of the Jeep badges of honor trails here soon.
Cool.
That'll be good. All right. This one's a little bit interesting of a question. We've danced around it, and we've talked about how EVs don't really have it, but manual or automatic?
Used to be a manual. I've just come into the automatic, and I really appreciate it.
Can't fault you on that one. Again, wearing my Shift Happens shirt depending on how you read this shirt, it could be in celebration of the automatic or poking fun at it.
Right.
What is your favorite driving song?
Tom Sawyer by Rush.
Nice.
Okay.
That's the first song that got played in here. It's the first song that gets played on anything I buy.
Love it.
Favorite car movie?
Favorite car movie? Well, am I allowed to say Cars?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do I have to pick up something manly? But
no.
Man, Cars is so well written for both kids and older people.
Agreed.
I just love it.
Again, I will remind you, I have a 3-year-old son who is into cars. Right. And yes, I've got, I believe, Cars 1, 2, and 3 memorized from how many times he's watched them. So yes, you can absolutely say Cars.
We had the minivan with a little fold down TV when that came out, and so we knew all the lines, even though we didn't see it a whole lot from the front seat.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Would you rather build a vehicle or buy a vehicle?
Oh, I would love to build a vehicle. My dream for years was to electrify a Jeep.
Nice.
I wanted to do a conversion, and I just don't have the place to do it. And there's all those engineering issues you come up with. But I follow a guy on Instagram. I think it's Electric Jeep. I forget what it is, but he's doing a conversion. He's using Tesla parts and everything, and I'm just following him,
That's cool.
rooting him along.
Yeah.
I get to do it through his hands,
And there's that charity foundation Omaze that have given away several classic electric conversions. They've given away a classic Bronco that's been converted to all electric. Granted, they added a couple doors to it. Type 2 bus they've given away that was electric powered. So a lot of stuff going on in that realm and in that world. So very interesting.
Yeah.
I will close us out with one that, again, we've kind of danced around the topic on this episode. You were talking about specking out your Jeep and being talked into some of the technological features. So more tech or less tech in vehicles?
Well, I'm always up for more.
Yeah.
I'm just I love pulling out an app and starting my vehicle. There's just something amazing about that. I work in the wireless communications industry. And I love more tech, but I get when things go wrong, they can go wrong really quick. So as long as it's well engineered, well designed, well researched, well tested, then bring it on.
All right. Well, Chris, it has been a blast having you on this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us and just giving us a little insight to the ownership experience of the new Wrangler 4xe. And very much looking forward to catching up with you a few miles down the road.
Yes. And thank you guys for being along for the ride and being and backing this thing up and being part of the group. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. So for those of you unaware, once again, you can go find his group on Facebook. It's Jeep Wrangler 4xe fans. And I believe you fill out a questionnaire and you'll be admitted to the group, correct?
Yep. And we're on Instagram and Twitter too. Wrangler 4xe. I think it's just Wrangler 4xe.
Right.
On both Instagram and Twitter.
So if you want to check out Chris and what his group is doing and conversing about it, or if you just want to learn more about this new Jeep Wrangler that's out there, go hit him up. Jeep Wrangler 4xe fans again on Facebook and Wrangler 4xe on Instagram and Twitter. Thank you so much, Chris. And we will absolutely keep in touch.
Well, thank you. Thanks for making my life more awesome today. You guys are great.
Well, thanks. You have a wonderful evening. All right, Matt.
Yep.
This week was a lot of electrification talk.
Yeah.
And you don't have quite the same pep in your step or the bounce in your voice that you normally do coming out of an episode.
I'm honestly, genuinely concerned for the well-being of all things gearhead. Like, I'm scared for the sake of the internal combustion engine because we have all of these manufacturers coming out, some of them just in the past few days.
Some today.
Some in the past few hours saying, yep, we're going full electric, full stop. But wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's 80% of the population that won't have anything to do with.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It really is nuts. And it genuinely scares me from the enthusiast gearhead side of it. I can't. The guys, the old guys with the muscle cars used to get on to the young guys with the tuners and computers and stuff all the time about, how do you expect to be able to tune that thing by just hooking up a computer to it, blah, blah, blah. When that's all you get to do, I mean, there's nothing to bolt on anymore. Yeah. You can't change gear ratios. You can't, add another battery to it or anything like that. I mean,
what you get is what you get practically.
Yeah. Outside of a few updates or something like that, there is nothing that you can do to modify this vehicle, to change it, to make it better, to make it faster, to make it, anything. And it's quiet. So there's no noise. There's no noise, Corey.
Yeah. To quote a very famous line from a very famous movie, life finds a way. And that is a horrible Jeff Goldblum impression, but I do believe gearheads will find a way. For one, I am still as deep as I am into this and covering the not even hybridification, but the electrification of the entire industry. I personally am still skeptical that it's actually going to play out the way that it is being mapped out for us right now. Because to say by 2035 that you're not going to sell any internal combustion engines, and General Motors, for example, their bread and butter, full-size trucks and SUVs.
Yeah.
And their last truly exciting car that they have in the stable right now that you could go out and buy is mid-engine Corvette. And yes, I know there's already rumors of that going electric sooner rather than later. But I don't know. It's I don't want to say a brave new world, a bold new world that we are inching ever so close to. And to close out this point is I do believe we will find a way, if this is the future that we are given from the established brands. I will say it does open the door for indie car producers to become a thing again. And, if the market is still there for internal combustion engines and it's not being served by those brands that have been around forever and ever, there's an aftermarket, if you will, for internal combustion that is not being met. And somebody will rise to the challenge of meeting that need in the market.
Right, but what do you do with the most popular swapped engine on the planet, the LS engine, when General Motors says, nope, we're not making those anymore, and now they go from being $800 a piece to $8,000 a piece? How are you supposed to be able to afford to do anything hot rod? I mean, I know a hot rod is not necessarily an affordable sport anyway, but it really, for the guys who could, in their driveway, LS swap a Fox body for less than 10 grand and go run 10s in the quarter mile on the weekends, I mean, that goes out the window.
Yeah. I just keep going back to it. I am skeptical that the future that we are being told we are going to get is the future we are actually going to get as prescribed as of today. I do believe that there is still too much of a market. There are too many guys like you that, I won't say guys like us because I'm a little more into the electrification than you are, but my passion still runs deep. My favorite car is a 69 Camaro Z28. That is not going to go away.
Right.
But there are still plenty of people with your mindset that are internal combustion or nothing, that I believe wholeheartedly that the vacuum left in the market by these major brands saying, nope, EV or nothing, something will come of that. Some entrepreneurial spirit will rise to the occasion and say, I have got the answer for you. And it'll be the craziest, the loudest, and the fastest, and probably not exactly the safest thing out on the road.
Well, just to clarify something, I'm not ICE or nothing.
Right.
I am anti-EV or nothing.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So it's not that I'm anti-EV necessarily. It's that I'm anti being exclusively EV.
Right.
It's not the end all beat all. It's not the latest greatest.
Yeah. And I would say I'm right there with you. I like push buttons a little bit.
You done got me fired up now.
Yeah. And there are benefits to the EV that I will concede. But yeah, I am completely skeptical that some of the biggest automakers in the world are just going to walk away from a market that is not ready to be walked away from.
Right.
And yeah, that's where I will leave that thought.
That's probably a good place to leave it because I can go on for a while.
So that leads us to ask you, our listeners, our supporters, what are your thoughts? Are you excited about this future we are forging into? Are you wanting to see more hybridification of vehicles like the 4xe, where it's a step in that direction, but it's not a full-fledged EV all the way through and through? It's a true hybrid, and you still have the backup of gasoline power. Or are you just, I don't even know, is it a gearhead? Like, is it an electron head? What are we calling the people that are EV or nothing? I don't know. We're going to have to come up with something.
I think our friends across the pond have it figured out with the petrol head element of it, because you got to have the gasoline in order to.
So petrol head versus electron head?
Something. I don't know.
But yes, we want to hear from you. Where do you stand on the whole issue? Are you excited about the 4xe? Are you excited about the possibilities that electrification brings? Or where are you? Let us know. Hit us up, gtgaragetalk.com. Shoot us an email, gtgaragetalk@gmail.com, or Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You know where to find us. Until next time, bye.